Helga's one of the most talented people I've met. So it's honestly it's a pleasure to sort of be in a band that shares her name.
Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Belgian Jasper. If this is your first time in the channel, hit subscribe right now.
Kai and Helga, thank you so much, of the band Helga, and we'll come back to that name and what it all means and the feelings with that. But before we get properly started, you both seem very calm and relaxed. Is that because it is a Friday, or you're always just calm and relaxed? The album is gonna come out in 2 weeks from now today. So under that calm facade, is there a lot of anxiety and energy brewing? What's the sentiment right now?
Yeah, the latter.
I think. I mean, for me, I think I'm just excited. Alive Again just came out yesterday, and people seem to be enjoying it. And we're just we're one step closer to finally releasing this album. So for me, I'm just excited, and I guess my excitement comes through as calmness, I suppose.
Never thought I would end up here.
People that watch these interviews on this channel know this, that far from every conversation starts with, wow, your album is so amazing, I'm such a big fan. But I am gonna polish your ego here for a little bit. The album is absolutely stunning. And I genuinely don't say that to a lot of people that I interview. The moment that I discovered, the first songs coming out, we were talking to Season like, hey, come on, let's get this interview going. We want to push this out there. This is a really, really beautiful album in so many different ways, from the artwork, from the music, from all the twists and turns you take us on, and we'll talk about that. You said, Kai, already that put out some singles and people seem to like it. Maybe my first question, I'm actually going to direct it to you, Helga, because at the end of the day, the band's name is also your name, which means that as much as you call it a band and as much as Kai answers all the questions today, people are going to see that name and are going to have a hard time putting a distinction between you, Helga the person, and Helga the band. So there's nowhere to run for you in a way. How does that feel, putting art out there under the name Helga and seeing people react in that way?
I don't know. It feels well. I feel scared most of the time. Like I don't really know.
Yeah, it is a very. The album comes across as very introspective and very personal, and whether it's one person or 5 people or 100 people that are working on an album, is that the scary part of it, that you as a band allow yourself to be very vulnerable?
Yeah, I think so, because I mean, I feel like music is a big part of myself, as a person. Right. And I feel like even if I want to separate myself from the music, that I can't really totally do that, because I want to be as honest as possible to others, to people as well. As much as I want to separate myself, I can't really.
So Kai, how's that for you? Because you've known Helga for a long time and you work, together on this project, knowing that for her, just with the band name alone, there's this extra layer of putting yourself out there. What's that like for you as a band member to support Helga in that way? Like, do you have the same feelings, or how do you, go about making sure that Helga is as comfortable as possible?
Yeah, well, first of all, Jasper, thank you so much for the kind words about the record. I'm glad you're enjoying it. When I first met Helga, she was already killing it. She'd already released 2 EPs as a solo artist, and so when it came to establishing the project as a band, it never really occurred to us to change the name. I wanted to honor those previous records. I wanted there to be a line through into this new era of the band. And you know, Helga remains the primary songwriter for this project. So as much as the rest of us contribute our parts and ideas, ultimately it's Helga who gets the final say. You know, if it's not meeting her vision, then we're not putting it out. So I never really thought twice about the name, and Helga's one of the most talented people I've met. So it's honestly it's a pleasure to sort of be in a band that shares her name. You know.
I've seen a lot of people react to the music. I have people in my own circle react to music. People seem to feel like, well, this hits a nerve, because even though it feels at times otherworldly, there is like this melancholic or nostalgic familiarity in a way. Was that intended that way, or is that something that came natural in writing this album?
Yeah, I think it just came naturally. I don't normally think, oh, I'm gonna want to make this sound melancholic or dark or whatever. Normally just comes naturally. I think that's normally what comes out the best, I think.
There are very few songs that are let's call it a linear journey, where like, you know, you start and you end, and it's kind of like the same thing going forward. There's twists and turns in this record everywhere. We never really know what's going to happen and what direction you take us. Where does that approach come from? Like, is that heavily fueled by the band members as well, who bring their individual pieces to it? Help me understand how that journey unfolds for you guys as a band.
I think, because I do start writing the songs first, so I think it's a mixture of both. I mean, my other bandmates do listen to all sorts of music as well, but I personally listen to a lot of, like, I don't know, some classical, but also like progressive, so rock or metal, like Opeth and stuff like that. So I think that's where it all starts, really.
Yeah, well, right in this record, if we're talking about sort of perhaps the more progressive sort of side to these songs, a lot of the time when writing them, Helga would sometimes start out with sections that sort of felt kind of that kind of linked or followed on from one another quite seamlessly. But other times there'd be sections that we'd agree, okay, this section this sounds really cool, but we didn't quite, that was the challenge initially. How do we work this into the song in a way that feels natural and doesn't sound forced? To your question, as far as collaboratively, Helga has been a dream to work with. I feel like I cut my teeth with this project, learning and performing the songs from Helga's first two records, which I had no part in creating, and I feel because of that, I kind of have a feeling or an instinct as to the kind of ideas that I think Helga would like and Helga would vibe with, and so honestly, writing for this record felt quite natural to me, I found it to be a very really easy kind of process collaboratively.
When we look at one of the songs that has been released already today, and I will mispronounce this obviously, but Skogen mumlar. The rhythm in that song, especially like after the bridge and the second part of the song, is like almost entrancing to a point, and I can only imagine that a song like that would be really engaging for a crowd. So I'm just going to use this a little bit as a forced segue to the album's coming out now. We've seen some singles. You can take this in many, many directions, but hopefully you'll take it onto a stage as well. So when can we see you play these songs live?
Well, No, good question. There's lots of plans in the works at the minute, Jasper. Nothing we can announce just yet, but yeah, we do have some touring plans in the works, and we should be playing certainly at least all over Europe in the foreseeable future.
There's some elements that make me, think about what another Season of Mist artist is doing, which is Sylvain. She also, ebbs and flows in between different genres, and the avant-garde to folk to extreme metal. And she then therefore can take her music to very different crowds. She'll tour with folk artists, and she'll do the next tour with like black metal artists. Have you, you guys can do the same. When you play for different audiences, or when you plan to play for different audiences, are you catering that experience to your audience a little bit more? Will you focus more on the aggressive stuff in your music for a metal crowd, or is the Helga live experience the Helga live experience no matter what the crowd would be?
That's a good question. What do you think, Helga? I think like, as you say, like Sylvain, I think we're likely to find ourselves in a variety of different sort of settings musically. And I think given the sort of vast sort of variety of sounds and sort of atmospheres on this record, I think it would be quite fun actually to see what kind of set list we can come up with that we feel might sell us best to that audience. But I still think we'd probably still want to sprinkle in a few tunes that maybe crowds wouldn't expect, and also just by virtue of the nature of the songs themselves, there's usually some surprises in there anyway. So, but yeah, I do like the idea of sort of tailoring the songs in some way at least.
Obviously there's heavier rock and some extreme metal elements in the music. They're not necessarily the predominant elements, but was it a bit of a surprise to see how the extreme metal community is embracing you as a band and as a sound? The fact that you're with Season of Mist, one of the considered quality labels in extreme music, you're now a little bit I'm not going to say the ugly duck, but the weird duck in that roster. And just being on that label, you're going to get probably more requests from those metal packages and tours and shows and festivals. So you're kind of going to be grouped in that world. Was that something that was a bit of a surprise when you were working on this material?
I don't think so too much. We started working on when we started work on this album. We were originally working on an EP, and it wasn't actually until Michael, the kind of head of Season of Mist, reached out to us that we changed course and we started working on an album. And so we'd only worked on one or two songs at that point, and so we certainly didn't write this album to cater for Season of Mist's listeners, but it was certainly in the back of our minds, the history and the association and everything. But I think the label wanted to sort of diversify its roster a little bit in kind of reaching out to us, and we're quite enthusiastic to be a part of that. We love black metal and other styles of extreme music, but we also love everything from classical to trip hop to surf rock to whatever it is. So for us, we just write what excites us, and if that excites Season of Mist audience too, then that's great.
I'm trying to sleep, but I can't stop my thoughts from wandering in place.
Now, Helga, I do have a question for you specifically, because clearly language and the stories you're telling are important. You already shared a lot of it is very personal, and you put yourself out there. Language is important, and you shared, I think before that, well, some of these songs just, they made more sense writing them in Swedish than in English. Is that, in a weird way, unfortunate for your crowd, that because the language is so important, that's why you did it in Swedish, that some people will never really understand what you're talking about without, you know, digging in and finding translations and so on? Is that on your mind at all, or should people find their own meaning in the songs anyway?
I think in general, I mean, if I were the listener, I would just interpret the piece of art or the music how I would interpret it, and as an artist, I'm not bothered with that, you know. But when it comes to like people not being able to understand the language when I write it in Swedish, for example, I think I'm not really bothered by that either, because I think music speaks for itself, and it's what they're here for, to listen to the music. So if it speaks to your heart, that's good enough for me, even if you don't understand it. And also I'm thinking that, I mean, sure, there are loads of English speakers in the world, but English is not the only language, I'm thinking.
Absolutely.
You know, so, I mean, I can write it on the languages as well, and that's totally fine.
Helga and Kai, I want to thank you so much for taking the time on this for you Friday afternoon, with the weekend knocking on the door, taking a little bit of your time to talk about this really beautiful new album. I'm very excited for all the people to discover the full album, because to your point, Kai, every song has a surprise. And some of those surprises are bigger than others, and it's a really fun listen. Thank you so much for creating this beautiful album. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it, and I genuinely hope to see you guys play very soon.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks so much, Jesper. Yeah, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, Jesper. Thank you.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it, and subscribe to the channel.